Hello and welcome to the first edition of the Ultimate Fighting Chat podcast. This is just something that we've been meaning to do for a while. It's just a couple of friends that like talking about fighting, like watching fighting, sport fighting that is, not real fighting, but as real as it gets, of course, like the Ultimate Fighting Championship, some boxing, if we ever get a chance to see it on normal TV without pay-per-view. We'll obviously cover that as well. But really, it's the stuff that we can access easily, which at the moment is Ultimate Fighting Championship, sometimes Bellator when they play those events, but MMA related mostly. And like I said, we've been meaning to do it for a while. We don't know if anybody's going to be interested in what we've got to say, but we have this chat every week anyway. So why not air it and see if there's other people's opinions? We love discussing it. So by all means, this is what we want. We want people to come in and discuss back with us because we enjoy talking about this stuff. We enjoy watching it. But more importantly, I'd say we actually enjoy talking about it more than we do even watching it. But you've got to watch it to have something to talk about. So, anything to add there?
No, that sounds about right. Just to say, I do like watching some other fights as well, as in like a couple of backstreet brawls and all that. The Jorge Masvidal backyard brawls and all that. They're pretty good
Oh, so you
sometimes.
do like that sort of fighting as well?
Uh, to a degree, yeah. I mean, it's a little bit. I don't like the fact that there's no medical assistance there and all that. If someone gets bashed out on the street, that's all pretty horrible stuff to watch. But you can certainly appreciate some of the technical aspects of some of these fights. I've seen some bare knuckle boxing,
Oh,
those
bare knuckle
kinds of
boxing.
things.
That was one I didn't mention. We if it comes on telly, I'm happy to cover BKFC as well,
Yeah,
the bare
absolutely.
knuckle
I mean,
fighting championship, because Lobov was on that, wasn't he? So
that's right.
is
Yeah,
that
the
Jason
goat.
Knight and
Yeah.
Malinaggi and all that? So yeah, we'll cover that if it comes on
And
telly. We get a chance to watch it. We'll have a chat about it. We did
yeah,
chat
no,
about it when it was
genuinely,
on.
Lobov is one of our favourite blokes, as in the bloke, not
Yeah, he's brilliant.
necessarily he's a record and stuff like that. But he genuinely he seems like a really good fella, doesn't he, on social media and just on the Ultimate Fighter show.
Yeah.
So yeah, just like watching anything that's got some technical aspect and has got some element of safety to it. I do not like watching. Probably worded it wrong at the start. I do not like watching a couple of drunk idiots having a
No, no.
swing. Um, but but yeah, and anything that shows some technical excellence or um, you know, or something, just something to watch, like you said. So anyway,
That's it.
I've
We're
dilly-dallied
both
on that.
into it.
Let's
We're
get on with
both
it.
into fighting, full stop, boxing, martial arts. Been following it for ages. Watch all the kung fu movies, and you've been following boxing for a lot longer than I have. But you keep
Well, I
up to
mean,
date with that a bit better than me with the
why don't
boxing.
we just touch on that just briefly? Obviously, you've been doing kung fu and all those sorts of martial arts since you were young, and
Yeah,
I was boxing from the age of about well, actually down at a boxing gym from 6 years old. Competed in amateur fights as well. So we have dabbled in these arts ourselves to varying levels, and
yeah. Look,
not that to make us experts necessarily, but
no, definitely it doesn't, but it does help when when you're watching fight sports because that's what you're interested in, and it's stuff that you might have covered and gone over in the gym before. So I do think it's relevant, but I have to say, even without any martial arts experience at all, I still think I'd be able to chat about, say, UFC because I've got eyes and I'm watching it. I can still comment on it and discuss it. And if you've been watching it for such a long period of time, I mean, I don't know how long I've been watching it, but I have seen all the, I did start on videos with UFC 1 and all that, and I've watched Pride and everything. And I've been watching it for absolute years now.
mm,
And I do think that just watching it gives you a knowledge of it,
of
even if
course it
it's
does.
just
Yeah, I
what you
mean,
pick up from the commentators and the fighters and the rest of the interviews, all this stuff that you listen to and watch, it gives you a knowledge of the sport. The same way if I started watching football, which I don't watch, if I started watching football and just watch football and didn't play it, eventually I'd get to grips with the rules, I'd know what's going on, and I'd have some understanding of the sport. I don't have to
mm,
play it to have some understanding of what's going on in front of me. Agreed?
that's right. Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of a misconception. I think that people think you have to have competed at the highest level in order to have a valid opinion. I certainly follow some people on Twitter. I'm gonna, don't know why we've gone off on this tangent before we even discussed the event.
We're
But,
on the
I
chat.
follow some people.
That's it.
Well, that's right. Yeah. And I follow some people on Twitter, like a chap called Lee Wiley. He does a lot of boxing analysis. And I saw him tweet the other day, that he has a full-time job now because of the, how good his content is. I thought he'd done that analysis and all that full time. And I thought he's probably done some coaching on the side and this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
But he doesn't, he does it as a passion. And he said, he's not competed at a high level. I might be wrong on that, but I think that's what he said. And, you've even got it in, say, for example, stuff like football. Jose Mourinho, one of the best coaches in the world. He never played at a high level. I think he was a goalkeeper or something like that at a modest level. So sometimes people have a little bit of arrogance with this stuff where they go, oh, yeah, well, what do you know? Because not saying about us, but, just about people in general that, you can't have an opinion unless you're an expert or unless you've been there, seen it, done it.
Exactly.
I don't think that's true. And I think, some of the greatest fighters do not make the greatest coaches, and some of the most average fighters make great coaches, and vice versa. And it's all just about different personalities, how things mix. And like you say, at the end of the day, we've all got eyes. We can all interpret stuff differently. And that's all what we're going to do, right? We watch this event and we're going to interpret it, have a chat about it. And if anyone wants to leave a message saying you two blokes talking absolute junk, by all means, that's just as welcome as the people who say you two are brilliant and know everything.
Yeah. So it's simple, isn't it? We like watching it. We enjoy chatting about it. So we're just going to continue to chat about it, but with a microphone instead of just over the phone, which is what we normally do. That's all it is. And this is where Matt Serra is wrong about Mark Lehman. Anyone who
I do remember that from the
and has watched it for a while will know what I'm talking about from the Ultimate Fighter days. He had a dig at him and said, he can't know what he's talking about. He's never had a fight.
Okay,
I don't necessarily agree.
I'm gonna contradict myself a little bit here, right? I don't want to go off on this tangent yet. We can sort of approach this subject in more detail another time. But what we'll say about that Lehman thing, and it's kind of cropped up a couple of times, I think, recently in MMA cornering and this, that, and the other. People who haven't been in there and had a fight, who are asking stuff of their pupil or their combatant, whatever you want to call it. So to stay in a fight where, let's be honest, they've never been experiencing what their fighter has experienced, and they're sending them out with teeth missing, or when they're looking down at the floor,
Smiths,
and stuff like that. And that's a particularly ugly look. And again, it sort of just goes to more about people being just either good at what they do or bad at what they do, regardless of previous experiences, that and the other. Because you obviously get that we had it recently with Ben Askren when he was talking about Sugar Sean O'Malley coming out on the stretcher, and he was like, "I would never let one of my fighters come out on the stretcher. It's a bad look." I'm not saying Askren's wrong. As you know, we both think he's wicked. The bloke, I really like that guy. But when I heard that opinion, I was a bit like, why? Why possibly risk some damage hopping to backstage to maintain some sort of, if you like, some sort of male pride, or, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Don't you have to be male or female pride, just some sort of, element of, oh, you didn't totally crush me. So what? You lost the fight, don't mess up your leg any more than it's already messed up.
But he's saying, I guess he's just saying, walk out on your own steam, and
of course, right? But let's just say Sugar Sean O'Malley does. Why am I calling it? Let's just say Sean O'Malley goes out backstage, right? And he hobbles backstage, and on the way, I don't know, he's one of his cornermen who he's got his arm around, slips over, and he ends up falling to the floor and doing even more damage. You honestly tell me there wouldn't be a person alive who would go, "You stupid clowns! There was a stretcher there. The guy's clearly injured. Take him out back.
Sensible, right?
And live to fight another day."
Exactly. Sensible above pride. Much more.
Exactly. Yeah, live to fight another day, and that was something that my dad
proved himself, right? He went through a training camp and turned up, and not just that fight. He's turned up and had fights before, so we know he's hard. We know he ain't scared of coming and having a smash up, because he's had loads of smash ups. We've seen him do it.
He's got nothing to prove to me, or Ben Askren, and I just think it's silly. And like I say, my dad always used to say, "Live to fight another day," and all this sort of stuff. And it was always like, there's no point in going out there. So, for example, you see it a bit more in boxing, because you can have a bit more sustained beating over a longer period of time, and you'll have a fighter who's 8 or 9 rounds down, face is smashed up, not going anywhere, and the corner is still sending him out again. I mean, it happens less in boxing. The corners do seem to be a bit more compassionate, in my experience.
Might
But
be because they've had some bad experiences. Might be based
yeah,
on the history of the sport.
Yeah, more deaths in boxing, a lot of
Brain damage, McLennan and all that, those kind of things are trying to avoid that happening again. You know, you see a bloke blinking heavily and then not doing nothing about it, and then what happens. They've got to be a bit more careful based on the past, right?
Well, yeah, because you have obviously concussions from being knocked down. People don't follow up and ground and pound and smash your teeth into the canvas and finish the fight, right? You can survive that count, get back to your corner and go back out again. The classic case I remember was Michael Watson, who was one of my favourite fighters as a kid growing up. Anyone who watched boxing, anyone who does watch boxing might find this a little boring, but anyway, we'll go for it very quickly.
Showing your age.
I am showing my age a little bit, yeah. But Michael Watson, I mean, he was coming up at the time. He was sort of a little bit more the quiet man, if you like. At the time, you had Nigel Benn, who was blasting people out left, right, and centre. You know, real explosive, exciting fighter. Watson was a lot more of a technically sound fighter. I mean, he was brilliant. He really was a great British fighter. And anyway, he had those couple of fights with Chris Eubank. The first one was a controversial draw where most people thought Watson won. And they had the rematch, and Watson absolutely was leathering Eubank for like 10, 11 rounds. And Eubank, he dropped Eubank, I think it was towards the end of the 11th. And I think Eubank, I even heard him saying in an interview afterwards, he basically just threw a Hail Mary punch. He just threw a wild swing that was just like, SHIT or bust. And well, I'm going to say unfortunately for everybody in this scenario, because at the time, it's fortunately for Eubank, it connected and it ended up winning him the fight. But I'm sure he would have conceded that it's obviously very unfortunate because we know what happened to Watson, right? He ended up in a wheelchair, paralysed, etc. But he actually got up from that knockdown.
From that fight, or from an accumulation of fighting?
Yeah, of course, possibly. But that was obviously the straw that broke the camel's back, and it was a heck of a shot. And I have no doubt that if he didn't land that shot, that Michael Watson would be in the position he's in today. But he landed that strike. Watson got up for the 10 count because he's amazing. It was right at the end of the round. He went back to his corner.
Because he's got grit, unlike O'Malley, yeah?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Ben Askren in the corner. He sent him back out again.
Yeah.
And he went out again. And, the rest of history basically put up no resistance because, I guess the damage had been done and he was stopped, quite, very, very quickly into the round. And I imagine the damage was already done. I'm not even sure that any of those follow-up blows caused any, greater further damage. I think the damage was done. But, when you have incidents like that in boxing, it caused so many reviews because I think he went to the wrong hospital and so many things that they put all these new reviews in place. And I just think that it's made the boxing world or the boxing corner just a little bit more, it's a real shot across the bow. A real warning shot across the bows and saying that that's not the kind of thing. I mean, those cornermen, that must keep them up at night, So
definitely, of course, it will.
Yeah, and
you don't want these things to happen again. No one did it on purpose. It was it's an accident, if you like. Well, part of the sport, that people are going to get hurt.
Yeah,
no matter how long the fight goes for, someone's getting hurt for sure, if not both of them. But it's not supposed to be that. It's supposed to be that you're able to go home and get up the next day and carry on as normal. So
of course, like I say, live to fight another day, right? It's just a number on a record. Rather than being 13-0, you're 12-1.
Yeah,
so what?
Exactly.
You still wake up the next morning with your faculties, healthy, and you can go again and become 13-1.
Or not, yeah.
Or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I just think that sort of put, and also I don't think that if something. I don't know. I just feel that maybe MMA is also a bit more. When I see the cornermen in MMA compared to boxing, this is just me from visual observation. There's no data to back this up, but it just strikes me that the average age of cornermen in MMA seems to be younger. It is a bit more of a newer, if you like, more exciting sport. This kind of burst onto the scene.
I've never thought about that, but you're right, as in I've noticed that even myself from the boxing that I have seen, it's always your old, Rocky Mickey type guy. Not always, but it's always an old fella, an old trainer, the old, spit and sweat gym. And MMA, it's a lot of the times it's young people or fellow fighters. A lot of the time, James Krause and that, Aljo's been in the corner a lot of the times recently. Yeah, I suppose the only older ones, Greg Jackson and Winklejohn, are quite they're old, but there's they're still fairly young.
Longo and Sarah. I mean, Sarah obviously an ex-fighter. He's not that old, but Longo.
Yeah. So I agree. Yeah, you're right. It's not something I've picked up on and noticed before, but agreed.
Well, it's changing a little bit now in boxing. So you have, like, in this country, we have McGuigan and Jamie Moore. So you do have a few younger coaches come through, but again, they're very sort of experienced fighters who have been in real tough wars, who would be, I don't know, just feel like they're a little bit more compassionate, and there is a little bit more. I also understand, right, this is the last point I'm making it because we're supposed to be talking about the event, but we
might not. It's okay. Let's just chat and we'll see what happens. Go on.
Okay, well, all I was going to say is, I think the other issue you have in MMA when it comes to sending people out into rounds where they look defeated, or they and there was was it Roshkov or something recently there was that big debacle with him. But the issue you have with sending people out in MMA and boxing is a lot more of a one-dimensional sport. So if I go in a boxing ring and somebody is just physically stronger than me, quicker than me, technically better, and they're giving me a whipping round after round, it's very difficult for me to turn that tide unless I do have a Hail Mary punch, or I can sort of outlast them. It's very little I can do to turn the tide. Or not very little. Obviously, there are alterations you can make in fights all the time, minor ones, be it footwork placement, range, all these kinds of things. But more often than not, after 3 or 4 rounds, the sort of the mold has been set in a boxing fight. If one fight is dominant, it's very rare to see that reversed so much. In MMA, you see it more because you've got more strings to your bow, more martial arts that you can call on, right? To change the tide. So, okay, I might.
Yeah, like you take a guy down. The most obvious.
Yeah, I might have got absolutely.
Yeah, I'm getting mashed up on the feet. Try and put him on his back.
Yeah. Or this round, I'll try leg kicks, and
push him up against the fence, get some energy back. Whereas obviously in boxing, you get split up being in a clinch, right?
That's right. Yeah. So that kind of might come back into our discussion when we chat about the Munhoz Edgar fight. But I just think that the people feel like, well, look, you got battered in that first round, but let's try and make this a grappling match because you got outstruck. Then you get, say, you struggle to take him down in the second round, but then you can kind of go, all right, well, in the third round, let's try some leg kicks. You didn't try many leg kicks in the first couple of rounds. There's a lot of more different things you can kind of try, and I think that gives people a bit more hope than in boxing, because in boxing, you see certain fights and you go, after 4 or 5 rounds, you can almost kind of go, yeah, just you could call this now. Just go, like, this is done. This guy don't need to take 4 or 5 more rounds of punishment. So.
Yeah, I see the point you're making there, that he can take a look at the situation of what's going on, and even if the guy ain't necessarily finished, it won't take much for him to see something a little bit more extreme, like up against the ropes, getting beaten up a bit more, and go, well, I've seen 4 rounds of him getting, losing this fight and not finding a way to improve it, so I might as well stop it now, which an MMA person could watch that and go, that's an early stoppage, he's not done.
That's right,
I'll give you a great example of what you're saying. McGregor Mayweather. You could look at that and go, that's an early stoppage. He was still on his feet. He still had his eyes open. He weren't sparked out. He's used to getting beaten up. He's a fighter. But I understood why that got stopped. There's nothing more to prove. It's done. Right? So I guess that was what I thought when I saw it. I had no issue with that stoppage. I didn't think it was early, but I can understand some people going, it's early. But I do think that is an MMA mindset and not necessarily a boxing one, or it makes more sense to me being more of an MMA watcher. Obviously,
it definitely is. Yeah, you get a lot more mercy stoppages, let's say, in boxing, and I also wonder a little bit, perhaps in MMA, even though I said about 10 minutes ago that was the last point I was going to make on it. I do perhaps wonder in MMA if, because you have that culture of, say, you knock someone down, you follow them down, you pound them out, and they say, keep going till the ref pulls you off, or, you spark people out a lot. You do get people who are concussed, and we saw it on the weekend with Dillian White against Povetkin, but you do get people who get
the pay-per-view. I didn't see it.
Yeah, I saw it, yeah. But you do get people who get starched, okay? And in boxing, Sergio Martinez, Paul Williams is one of the most famous ones. I mean, the guy looked like he'd been taken out by a sniper from Rose Ed. But it's very, very rare, And you, like you say, you get a lot more of the mercy stoppages where the referee kind of steps in and goes, listen, son, there's no point in you getting rendered unconscious. You ain't winning this fight. It's done.
What would Matt Serra say to that ref?
what would Matt
The ref
Saracen
hasn't had
say?
a fight before. Would he say, well, what do you know? I was good to go.
Well, the see, this
I'm
is
just saying, the refs. I don't know about refs being former fighters. I do in MMA. I know the refs that are former fighters. Frank Trigg, for example, only one I can think of, by the way. Herb Dean's had a fight.
Yeah, Goddard had
Yeah.
fights.
So I'm wondering if these boxing refs, which again, like you said regarding the coaches, they always seem a little bit they're not all old or whatever, but they seem a little bit older. Are any of them former fighters? Do you know?
I don't know about sort of like perhaps amateur fights and this, that, and the other.
Because then we're going back to the Mark Lane
I,
and Matt
I
Serra.
imagine like sort of referees like Mills Lane, Richard Steele. And I don't know. I don't know much about their history and this and
But
the
to
other.
me, it don't matter. It makes
I
sense,
imagine
right? How many fights has the bloke refed?
you,
How many
you
times has
only
he
need
seen this
to,
stuff happen?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
his
sure.
job, right, to notice and say,
Yeah.
this fighter's got
He's a
nothing
human,
left to
right?
offer. It's his
Yeah.
job to notice it. I'm not saying he's right, but it's his job to look at that situation. That's what he's paid to do, to look at that situation and go, that kid has done everything he can. I can't see any improvements. I'm going to take him out of the fight. We've seen the corners do it. They do it before the ref a lot of the times. But the fighter might have something to say about it and go, well, I was just figuring it out. I was figuring it out. Might have something to say about it.
It seems to be frowned upon more in MMA. I think almost like you're quitting. There's very much this sort of macho. I'm prepared to die in there. You hear that garbage a lot. Before the fight, I'm prepared to die in there. They'll have to carry me. All this nonsense. I mean, it's. I get it. You're in fight mode. You're trying to talk yourself up.
That's the chat they say beforehand. But
yeah,
there's a
of
lot
course.
of times
If
when the
someone
fight gets stopped and they're all good with it because
yeah,
guess
of
what? They
course,
don't feel like they felt when they felt all fit, strong, and healthy before the fight.
yeah.
They don't feel like that now when they're getting pummeled. I'll give you an example. That's obviously my new move. That's what I do. I give examples. McGregor against Khabib, right? He had all the chat, and rightly so. He's good at selling fights. I've got no issue with all the chat. But the point you're making there is I'll bring one up in an example that I've thought of. Is he was in there having a fight, and what happened? He was getting his face pummeled. He didn't feel quite as good as he did at the beginning of round one or before the fight when he was giving all the chat. And what did he say? It's only business. He's kind of saying, listen, calm down with, pummeling me head.
Stop beating me up so much.
Yeah, stop beating me up. I was only messing around, So as an example, innit, of something where someone don't feel they're all good with it being stopped now. He's all good with being choked, tapping out. He's done. Doesn't feel the same. The confidence is gone. The let me die in there ain't real. Because if it's a let me die in there, well, first off, they say it because they know they have. Well, first off, it's an act, isn't it? It's a selling point. It's a fighter's mentality. But they also know there's protection. It's a sport. It's on telly. There's a ref. There's a corner. They ain't going to get done in there unless there's a serious accident. They're not going to die in there. So there, it's all good. The only one that springs to mind, I'll give you another example that springs to mind that was said quite seriously was Frank Mir of Brock Lesnar. Remember what he said about Brock Lesnar?
Go on.
He said he was going to be the first death in the cage. That's what he said about Brock Lesnar. And you know what Frank Mir's like. He said it deadpan, serious face. He just sat there and said, "I'm just letting you know, this is what I'm going to do that night." So he did a reverse version. Never worried about whether he was going to get done. He's like, my opponent is though, which is a rare thing to say, right? They sometimes say, "I'm going to hurt him. I'm going to beat him up. I'm going to."
No, I mean
but it's very rare to say things like that.
There was one actually recently in boxing again. I won't keep going back to boxing, but the
Chris fighting chat.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but how far in are we? We still haven't mentioned Munhoz Edgar, but the
don't matter. We might not. This might be the intro show, and then we do another one for that.
Maybe we will do that. Yeah, maybe we will.
That's right.
An intro and then skip on to Edgar, but. And we are. I mean, we've mentioned we want to do a proper discussion about refereeing, especially with what's happened recently and this, that, and the other. So these kind of things, maybe we'll do We'll
save it for that, and we'll have a podcast titled about just that, because then people can chime in, can't they? If anyone ever listens to it, they can have a chat back, because that's ideally what we want.
Yeah.
So you was going to make another boxing point.
Yeah. So there was recently. I'm pretty sure Chris Eubank Sr. and he had his son Chris Eubank Jr. was fighting, and again it's obviously to sell fights, but it's just not a good look to say stuff like this. He basically said, the ref needs to be on his game because my son, he could kill someone. That's how good he's looking in training. You know, I mean, he's a lethal weapon. I can't remember the exact quote, but it was a pretty tasteless sort of comment. But as you know, we think Chris
but it's a
Eubank
quality selling soundbite.
That's right. I think because of his history, right, what happened with Watson, it's not a great thing to say. Right?
Yeah.
Should perhaps be a little bit more
sensitive to that kind of thing. Exactly. Yeah, this is just a sport. You'd think he'd say it's just a sport, no problem. Hopefully, no one gets hurt. You know?
I mean, I'd before I go on record as saying he 100% said that. I'd like to get the actual real quote up, but
words to that effect, something that at the time you thought could be taken by some people.
Yeah, it could be misconstrued, or exactly. But anyway, we can move on from that. I think it's
all right. Well, I am going to move on from it, but I'm going to go straight back to, because it's something that recently happened, and we might save the event chat for another time. Sean O'Malley, he got brought up. I can't remember why he got brought up. Oh, something to do with Ben Askren.
Because
I'm bringing him up because I just heard, I think yesterday, that and I thought this at the time watching the fight, and we're not going to cover that event because it's a couple of weeks ago, so we probably won't cover that event. So let's just bring up a little bit of news from that event. I think it was only yesterday someone said that they've looked into the injury and it weren't that bad. It's not as bad as they thought. Some people said, he could be out for 6 months, could be out for a year. We don't know what's gone wrong with him. Now, at the time, obviously I thought, or I wondered, how bad is this? Maybe he needs some time to recover. Now, we both agreed that the stoppage was fine. He was getting punched in the head, elbowed in the head while he was on the floor. Nothing wrong with the stoppage. I'm just saying that a lot of people think there's something wrong with that stoppage. But looking at what we've seen in the past, so Michael Chandler, we've seen him with the rollover ankle before. And it's all twisted up, right? I think Varner as well. Varner lost that fight because they stopped it, I believe. But he fought on what looked like a snap leg for ages. Don't know if it's the same injury. But the Chandler one looked the same. And Chandler said after that fight, I can't remember, but I do think that fight might have been stopped, right? And Chandler lost it, I think, right? But I do remember him saying after that fight, I was all good. 2 minutes later or 5 minutes later when I was walking out of the cage, it didn't hurt. I shouldn't have been stopped. I was all good, right? Now, I thought the same about O'Malley. We've also seen it with Henry Cejudo and Demetrius Johnson, right? He was kicking his calf.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And Cejudo had the same thing, but he fought for it and he got to round 2 and he ended up winning that fight. Now, it seems if what I've heard is right, that the injury's not that bad, it seems it's another one of these weird nerve injuries. So, based on that, if it is that, and in a few weeks or a month or so's time, it gets healed up and he's all right, and it's nothing serious like torn ligaments and stuff like that, do you think the fight was stopped early? Let's say he was able to let it go and he didn't get knocked out on that canvas. Because do you think that it was stopped partly because of the leg and partly because of the ground and pound? Do you think it's both things? Do you think it's just because he was going to go out on the mat? What do you think about that? And do you think it was stopped early based on the new news that I'm telling you, where they're saying the injury ain't as bad as we thought, which probably means it's that funny nerve that takes a while to come back. What do you reckon? Early, not early, happy with it still, okay with it? Should he have got a chance to get up? I mean, I haven't heard from O'Malley. I'll have a chat with him maybe later, but I ain't heard from him. And seeing what he's had to say about it. All I know is he says that, Chito Vera's crap, worse than him, and he'll smash his face in. I know he said words to that effect. But what do you think now about the stoppage, knowing that the injury may only be just, a nerve damage, for example? Don't know for sure, but let's just say it is.
Well, I was really surprised to see people sort of thinking that stoppage was even remotely controversial. To me, Herb Dean's coming in for, a bit of a rough ride lately. And I think I'm fairly so. And I had zero problems with the stoppage. Zero.
So let's take leg injury.
I actually think it was really good refereeing, because what Herb done was...
You should take notice of the leg, right?
Correct, yeah. Is what he done. So. It's what we were talking earlier about, what are somebody's chances of coming out of this fight with a win? How can they continue to be competitive? So even if you took away the leg injury and didn't take that into consideration, which of course it should be taken into consideration.
Well, that's the idea. The ref's supposed to be looking at what's going on.
Yeah, at all different aspects of the fight, right? And if I look at that,
you can't stand on both legs.
Correct, yeah.
But then you can do jiu-jitsu off your back.
Yeah, but is he really going to be able to say, get his butterfly hooks in and kick it,
Well, we'll
push
never
the
know. It got
issue
stopped.
That's right. But he
Devil's
got
advocate,
stopped.
by
He
the way.
got
I
stopped.
thought the stoppage was good as well. But
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but if you look at the punches when O'Malley was on the floor, so he landed a big elbow, and that elbow made his head go. I don't think he was out. I think it might have been sort of a flash KO where you kind of get that pitch black, across your eyes. So essentially, you are knocked out. But it's for a split second. You wake up. It's almost like a long blink, so to speak. And you look at that, and the way his body and his head responded was as if he'd just been flash KO'd. And then, to me, more worryingly, is he kind of took another couple of punches, but then he took a bit more of a glancing blow, and he kind of looked like he got flash KO'd or went limp again for another split second. And the reason that one's more worrying is not because that punch was devastating, because it wasn't. It was actually partially blocked. It wasn't a big, you didn't get his full weight behind it. But it showed to me that his brain or his body was compromised enough where it was now shutting down from trauma a lot quicker and a lot easier. And so to me, that's worrying because, again, there's no need for this guy to get, banged out cold. It's just no need for it. And so I would have stopped it there regardless of the injured leg. But the injured leg adds to it because can this guy get back to his feet? If he can get back to his feet, how's he moving? Can he throw kicks? What if Chito Vera lands another leg kick? And how long is that going to put him out for? To me, the leg thing wouldn't have been that much consideration because I think Chito Vera done enough elsewhere to warrant the stoppage as well. So the leg was, if you like, just the cherry on top. Now, if you're asking me, do I think Chito Vera is better than Sean O'Malley or can beat him again in a rematch? That's quite a difficult thing to answer because I think Sean O'Malley had a kind of an injury in that quite early on. So I don't think we really got to see a proper contest there. And some people are saying the kick was caused by Chito Vera. But if you remember, there was that fight between Condit and Woodley. Remember where Condit got injured.
Spun him round.
Yeah, and those things, right? And, the classic Weidman, Anderson, Silva. And of course, if you cause the injury, you win the fight, right? If I kick you so hard that I break your ribs and you can't breathe anymore and you can't carry on fighting, well, I've won the fight. I've beaten you up, right? Well, so this isn't to take away from Chito Vera, but sometimes you can kind of go, oh, that was a little bit of a, what's it, lightning in a bottle. It's a little bit of a sort of a freak occurrence. And I would like to see a rematch between those two because I think that was a clear win for Chito Vera. I don't think it's not, even though O'Malley had that stumble where his foot gave way, I think he was showing signs of having a little bit of an injury earlier, which, he was taking some kicks, which may have caused that injury, may not have, right? Who knows? Yeah. But I think Chito Vera done enough for that to be a more than valid win. But I also see why Sean O'Malley might go, well, you didn't really beat me. You just done me on a kind of a freak injury and I'll smash your face. I get both sides of the argument, and I have no problem with either side. And it is a fight I would like to see again. But as for the stoppage, no problem with it. I thought it was a great stoppage. If anything, I was really surprised to see the pushback on it. But
it is a bit weird. I guess it's just down to fans and people wanting to see the fight go longer, give him a chance to recover and all that. But I'll tell you one thing, Chito Vera wouldn't have given him a chance to recover. Let's be honest, what's he going to do? Stop? It wasn't like it was late in the fight where he was tired. He would have carried on trying to smash him in the face, right? And he's been working with Perillo. Makes him qual.
That's right, yeah. I mean, got Biz as the title. So
well, it did as well. Yeah, you're right there.
But I would like to. Always very, very sort of complimentary of him. Like about how big a influence he had on him. I know all coaches have big influence on their fights. But, I saw an interview of Bisping once where he really was being, very complimentary about that guy. The only thing that, we both agree that Perillo is crap at is designing gyms because having white mats, white bags, white gloves, white everything.
In a place where red is a colour that can often, a staining, strong red colour called blood can stain white easily, especially when you're doing combat sports in a gym. So
it's just a bad idea for anything, right? White pants are a risk. Wear a white pair of pants, they're a risk. Listen, you buy a free pack of boxers or briefs, you get usually like a black pair, a blue pair, right? Those can you know, you can keep them going for a lot longer than the third pair, the white pair. I mean, they're almost like a one use only, and then they're in the bin, right?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah,
yeah, so
no
Perillo's
doubt
definitely.
about it. Yeah. Here, it shows the dirt. White shows the dirt, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Same as when you paint your walls or anything. So yeah, it's a good point about the white gym, but yeah, it's kind of stands out though, right? You can't really say what any other gym looks like because I can't. They all look the same. Oh, apart
That's right.
from
Yeah,
what's
yeah,
the one
exactly.
with the Lambert? Even that one, the ATT in it, is that one?
Yeah,
Dan
yeah,
Lambert's one. You don't really see all that stuff, you know, all the dorms and locker rooms and showers and all that, do you?
Oh, well, I watch a lot of the strength and condition stuff that
Yeah.
Phil LaRue used to do there. So I've seen that gym quite a lot. It's not even a gym, is it? It's a complex, that
Yeah,
place.
big space full of equipment.
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, but yeah, you're right. Perillo's definitely has got. You know, look, we know we can describe Perillo's gym,
That's what I'm
but
saying.
yeah, but I mean, he must really get the ump. You know, like say if it's been raining outside and somebody comes in with muddy trainers, he
Yeah.
must go ballistic.
Yeah.
So that's a bad idea. But you know, he got he helped Bisping win the title, and Bisping is one of our favourite fighters because he's brilliant in and out of the cage. So
Yeah.
but that's a discussion for another time. Edgar Munhoz, let's do it. Let's hit it.
No, let's not.
No, you're not finished
No.
on O'Malley.
No. Yeah, I'm going to finish on O'Malley, right? Because I'd
Okay.
like to see something. Well, I want to know what O'Malley said after that fight or what his thoughts are about, his injury. I'd like a little bit more on it. But I agree that a rematch is a sensible thing to do. If I was Vera, I'd beat him. I don't need a rematch. But I would also like it if I was him and go, no worries, I'll do it again. I'll beat him again, which is probably the sort of attitude a guy like that is going to have. But let's face it, it probably would be a bit better or a bit more sensible if O'Malley came back, had another fight or two in between, and then they rematch later. It'd probably make a bit more sense. But I'm happy to see him
Yeah,
rematch
definitely.
again.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
problem.
No. Cheeto Vera now he's done his thing. He
Well,
deserves
yes.
he deserves to move on up
Stop the hype train and all that stuff,
yeah. And I still think I think he's a good prospect, and
Of course.
his stock hasn't really fallen for me. You know, I don't like look at him now and go, oh, well, he's been exposed.
Well, look,
like a lot of people can do. I'm still like, no, this guy's good. He's definitely one of the most exciting guys in the division, but. You know,
it's how he's promoted, though, isn't it? How much they were putting behind him, because there is a difference. Because all the videos before it and all that, there was all O'Malley. I didn't see no Cheeto Vera stuff really. Bit of Perillo in the white gym, but there wasn't much to be seen. He had the sugar show. He's got all that, and listen, rightly so, right? He's made himself interesting. He's made himself watchable, and he can now fall back on. He didn't do me. It's the leg. The injury done me, and then someone else, Vera being the person, and probably Perillo, will go, he did do you. That injury didn't come from nowhere. And O'Malley, I'm sure, will go, yeah, it did. It's an injury from ages ago. I've had it for a while. So, but I was saying something to you the other day, wasn't I, about conditioning and stuff, especially on young fighters. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, if you watch Thai boxing, Muay Thai, you look at that and you look at what they're doing and how much they can take kicks, whether it be to the thighs, to the ribs. It's unbelievable the amount of stick they can take, because that's what they train for. Remember, it's a specific sport, Muay Thai. Yeah, they use it in MMA, but it's a sport of its own accord. That's why they stand more square. They're waiting for kicks, right? They're waiting. Mm-hmm. They know there's a very difference. Remember, it's Muay Thai against Muay Thai, right? That's why they condition themselves for it. You ain't got time to do that if you're doing MMA and jiu-jitsu and this, that, and the other. You ain't got time to practice your iron palm, and your iron shins and be kicking trees and whatever. Those guys are at a different level. So people that have a Muay Thai, a real Thai boxing base like Cerrone, you'll see he can take some more licks with things like that, and it doesn't really affect him in the same way. I ain't saying that O'Malley's a weed. Definitely not. He's fights, right? But he is young. He's in his 20s, and it does take time for your body to get used to doing things like that. And there's a lot of things in MMA, whether it be twisting, turning from wrestling and slamming on the floor, and along with the basic things of just getting it in the face and whatever. A lot of things to consider. It takes a long time for your body to be conditioned. He's got a very young and long, lean body, and maybe he's just going to take him some time to sort of train and teach his body that, look, this is what you need to do to go through, for my job, this is what you need to do. You have to condition it. I remember a long time ago, I tore my hamstrings, and I thought, I literally couldn't walk. And I thought, that's it. I'm never going to be able to kick, never going to be able to do anything. Until years later, I decided that I turned up to a place and that's all they did was kicking. I didn't know that, otherwise I wouldn't have turned up. And he said, just try it. 3-6 months later, I was kicking again. Not to the same extent. There was an effect there. But I re-taught my body that, no, I want you to do this, so you're going to do it. To a lesser degree, but it did it. And that's what I think OMalley's probably going to have to do. He's young, and he's probably going to have to just get a bit more conditioned to things, and hopefully that injury won't be an ongoing one, because otherwise he's always going to be out. He might not even be able to fight if it just keeps going every fight, or he just gets kicked once. They've got good stuff these days, you know. They've got the PI and all this Performance Institute, all these places and all these different people that can, you know, he's obviously got a lot of money. Not a lot of money, but what I'm saying is he's got enough, and the UFC will look after him. So I'm sure if that can get healed up and fixed, it will be fixed to a good extent. But, you know, let's face it, if you were fighting him, well, they're all kicking each other in the calves anyway. Innit? I don't want to be crap about it, but it's getting a bit boring that. Every fight, they come out, kick to the calf. It's starting to irritate me.
Well, we all know it all started, and it kind of brings us on to that event, right? The sort of time that, if you like, that, or the person who, if you like, I noticed who used it a lot was Benson Henderson.
That's right.
And he used it a lot in the Frankie Edgar fight, which brings us.
Frankie ended up jumping over him, if you remember.
There was one
never
time,
experienced him before. He ended up hopping over him, you know.
Yeah.
But you're right to say that's where you saw it first, or the first, you know, because obviously we're watching it on telly. There'll probably be blokes in gyms and go, "No, I did it ages ago. You know, I've been kicking calves forever." You know, I'm sure there will be. It seems an obvious thing, right? But I'll tell you now, in the Muay Thai classes, you're never told to kick calves. You're told to kick just above the knee. There's a muscle above there. They tell you to aim for that with a specific part of the leg. And so aim for that. You never get told to kick a calf. So it is I don't want to call it rare, but there's a reason you never saw it before then. Because you don't get taught it. So I don't know where he got it from. Why has no one ever asked him? Well, maybe they have, and I've just not seen it. But I agree, he's the first bloke I saw do it. And
it was the first guy I saw do it, but do it, you know, regular, and it be, you know, impactful enough, you know, that it actually affected fights or the people he was fighting.
Yeah.
You know, it's now become the kick of choice.
That was a long time ago, though, right? I mean, it's taken a long time for it to become the kick of choice.
It has, yeah. And I mean, if you think that, you know, sort of like the kicking style of, say, a Thiago Alves, you know, just absolutely battering that big lump of meat on the top of your leg,
exactly,
has sort of disappeared now, and it can't really see it. And again,
there's a few reasons.
It does bring me off. It brings me on to that event, because one of the fights I wanted to talk about was Trevin Jones versus Timo Ballier.
Yeah, well, we're not going to talk about it. We can save it, because, you know, we've been going a while. We can use it as the introduction and proof of what we said at the start, that we like chatting about fighting, and that's what we've done.
All right.
So,
well,
if we titled this podcast that event, we'd be lying, wouldn't we? Because you'd have to listen to God knows how long before you got to any details about it. Yeah. So we're right to leave this, I think, and use it as an example of that we love waffling and chatting about fighting. Hey, we're told the truth. This is what we like doing. We would have done this regardless anyway. I almost forgot that I was recording it on a microphone anyway, because I'm chatting to my mate as I do every week. It's not really any different for me. So, you know, maybe we should just leave it there, and we can start another one and focus on the event that happened the weekend just gone.
All right, let's do it.
So thanks, if anybody is listening or does listen at some point, thanks for listening. We've got the channel there. Like and subscribe. If you do like and you do want to hear more, we're going to try and do content fairly regularly. But please, by all means, do comment if you have the time and the inkling to do so. We'd love it, because I'll say it again, we love chatting about this stuff. We will get back to you. We will respond. We enjoy chatting about it, and we'll go from there, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. See you later.
Ta-da.
Nice one.